The Process, a podcast about creativity and experimental music. In the world of experimental music, outcomes and accolades for creators can be uncertain and at times seem far and few between. Therefore, creators and practitioners of experimental music must embrace the one thing they will always have complete control over: the process. This podcast aims to understand this creative process by listening to new works and discussing them with their creators. Each episode focuses on one creator and their music. Understanding how and why they create can inform aspiring creatives and help audiences better understand and navigate experimental music. I'm illustrator Joe Esposito, and I'll be your host as we explore the world of experimental music, creativity, and the human need to find purpose in their world and lives. This is The Process. There are albums that I specifically pick up because the tracks are 20 or 30 minutes long to listen to while I'm drawing. So that I don't have to pay attention as far as, because there's albums I listen to and I listen to the album. Yeah. And so I'm immersed in the album. Right. But then there's stuff that works very well as background music. So you can have a track that goes on for 20 minutes. There's actually sort of a neat, what's that, Ouroboros effect, where your creation being loose is allowing somebody else's creation to be birthed because they don't have to pay as much attention to your creation. And then you spiral and shoot off into space and suddenly you don't know where you are anymore. Or there's just people who want to get baked and listen to stuff that they don't have to pay attention to. There is that audience, and there's a lot of them. That's fine too.
You can only listen to Dark Side of the Moon so many times before you're like, all right,
you put it on reverse, and then somebody plays it forward and reverse on two different turntables. I've heard that actually is something people do, is they play the albums backwards and forwards at the same time, and I'm like, I will never in my life be high enough for that to ever make sense for me. But if it makes your Friday night, I am not judging. Do whatever you'd like.
But even with some of that stuff too, there's like laser lights involved. There's like laser light shows involved and all that. And so even then, and sometimes it's at a planetarium. So even then it's like a community event where people go out with their friends or with other people, see other people, have a shared live experience, and then, you know, maybe get a drink afterwards, get some food afterwards. So like that's part of the shows too, is like you're in a room with all these other people that are like down for weird visuals, music, and dancing. So it's kind of like people that are into the stuff that you're into are all in the same room at one time, which in 2025, man, like that can be tricky to find your people all in one room at the same time.
Okay, so another good comparison point to that, right? So anybody who's coming to one of the shows probably is there to hear some version of what you're producing. Like they have an idea of what the albums are or what the artists are. Yeah. Now, on an album, what are you envisioning? Are you trying to recreate that general mood of the live show, or are you specifically creating something that is separate from it? Because if many of the tracks are the same, but you don't have the room ambience, you don't have the variation of the video and everything, how do you figure out what mood you're aiming for on an album where it could be a room full of people. Your album could be played where there's lots of people, but it could also be one person, which is a very different listening experience. So how do you approach creating that mood?
See, that's interesting. I was writing it for the person with their headphones on, alone, listening to every moment. So like the other drone albums and stuff that I do, and some of them, even the classical albums, I'm like, experience this however you want at a live performance, or, while you're doing your laundry or doing some other task, like you're drawing or doing something else creative. That's amazing. This one I wrote for the headphone listeners. So for the guy or person that you see with their headphones on, like walking home from work, they might be on the T, they might be at home, like God forbid, with a pair of speakers, just sitting there, maybe not baked, but just sitting there, like drinking a non-alcoholic beverage, like a healthy activity, just sitting there listening. I wrote the album for it to be experienced that way. It doesn't mean you can't jog to this, doesn't mean you can't do your laundry to it. I mean, it keeps coming back to laundry. I don't, but it doesn't.
We all
mean
have to do it. Hopefully,
you don't have to do it. But I wrote it for the listeners because that's how I listen to music. And I have the speakers behind me. I wrote it listening to it on these speakers with the sub, and I listened to it in other critical listening rooms. So I really wanted this to be a listener's album and a really high fidelity album. That some of the other albums, like I said, I made some compromises because I wanted live strings or I wanted this and that. So I didn't quite get that level of fidelity that I wanted, where this, I could just control every aspect. And sometimes that was kind of limiting, but I think I was able to create something for the listeners.
And it's interesting because I've seen musicians who will say best experienced wearing headphones, or some that said no. They actually, there was someone, I can't remember who it was, who said this is meant to be listened to where there's space. You're meant to hear the sounds through the air. Like they have this long paragraph explaining what their idea of what it should be listened to. And they never say you have to listen. I mean, how are you going to do that anyway? Yeah. But it is interesting.
How are they going to police it?
Really. I mean, they're going to come through the speaker and be like, stop. Robert Loggia is going to come through a speaker with a billy club and start beating your head.
Yeah.
But
he's here right now, actually.
Listen, this is meant to be like, anyway, I'm not going to do a voice. But I have heard albums where they do sound very different because generally I listen to albums one of three ways. One is with my, what I guess you'd call computer speakers, the Klipsch Pro Medias, which is a 2.1 system and very good sound. Headphones, and I generally have not your level headphones. I can't spend thousands on headphones, but good headphones, good Sonys.
Good.
And then the big full home pod that's kind of in a central area of a room. And I tend to try to listen to albums on each of those at certain points to hear the differences. And sometimes there's really no difference. Some stuff is virtually the same, except there is always going to be a intimacy to headphones because if you're not listening to open ear, if you have sealed, because I don't like open ear, I always have the sealed cans. But that's the only one where it's like, well, there's always going to be that kind of, it's right on top of you type of aspect. But then other ones, there's big variance, little like certain aspects completely drop out.
You're like,
I guess what I'll call
missing.
An open. It's crazy. It's and then other ones don't. So there's no real consistency, and I don't know if that's I can never tell if that's the hardware or if it was written in a certain way where it's meant to be heard very close or farther out. It's interesting. I as a dummy who doesn't know anything about music, I can't tell the difference, but I can hear just that much of it. And so that's why I was wondering what the idea was, and the idea that it was in headphones. So you said,
but I mixed them. I mixed them on all three, though. Like I mixed them.
That was my next question: is how did you do the mix? Okay.
So I mixed them on the Genelex. I have a set at school. There's a listening room there that I also compared it to. They're all 2.1 systems, so they have speakers and subs. I listened on my earbuds. I have a different pair of earbuds in now. I listened to it on my, like you said, $1,000 headphones. I also listened to them on cheaper headphones. I listened to it on the terrifying, mono Bluetooth speaker just to hear how it sounds through a shitty speaker. But I tried to make it work for all those things. And, part of the mastering process is that, right? To like make it work on all those systems as best you can.
So it is a balancing act. So you're kind of trying to hit a mid-level between those, let's call them the three main setups, which is,
I think it needs to work.
Highest end, middle end.
Okay. It works on all three. The way I spent the time mixing and mastering it, it works on all three. But I think if you have a room with a subwoofer in it, you're going to have a really great time, because I spent a lot of time working with a subwoofer or a low frequency speaker to really create some low end moments that I think are going to be really exciting. But I've also mixed it in a way so that even if you're just using your like Apple EarPod Pros or whatever, that have a pretty good bass response, you're still going to get that impression. Because like I said, I wanted it to be for a listening experience, not so much kind of speakers in a room or more casual listening event. I wanted it for people who would sit there and be like, dude, was there like a whistle in the background there? Like, what just happened? Let me go back and listen. Because I wanted to have that much detail when I was making it. And I feel like there's so many great albums that we've listened to over the years that have those little things in there, those little ear candy for us. And I wanted to create something like that because I've always appreciated those artists and those albums. I remember I had an idea of sort of a robot cowboy, and I remember I did like a quick AI art mock-up, and which was horrible, because people are good. And I showed it to you, and yeah, I guess I said my big thing was I wanted a robot that looked sort of sad. Um, and then I think it was you that mentioned something about the Marlboro Man. Do you remember that
Well,
at all?
yeah, because for me, somebody who grew up on the East Coast now lives in the West Coast, so I have no concept of what an actual cowboy actually does. I don't know if it's different from the movies. I'm sure there's some fictional embellishment involved there. So my point of reference is the Marlboro Man, because that, for anybody who doesn't know what cowboys actually do, it's either Westerns or it's the Marlboro Man. These ads I used to see of this rugged kind of, has the hat, has the whole look of what somebody who has no idea of what the reality is would graft onto that. So yeah, I jumped to, okay, what if the Marlboro Man was just diagnosed with lung cancer? Right. This is what I should be aiming for, right? I mean, that's what I'm sure would ultimately happen at some point, because smoking's bad. Don't do it, kids.
I think in middle school, I think the Marlboro Man actually came to my school, and he had like lung cancer. I think
he's dragging a tank behind him. He's like, "Don't do it."
It wasn't that bad. He wasn't that far.
It's like, don't do it, children.
It didn't go that far, but he was not in good shape.
Well, it sounds kinder than in my school, where my teacher brought in a black lung and slapped it on the desk and said, "This is your future." And then we all just vomited and ran in terror. I don't think that teacher ever came back, but it worked.
Then smoked in the bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, like, so, and I think that was great when you mentioned the Marlboro Man. I was like, yeah, like this idea, but I was like, I want the Marlboro Man to be sad. And one of the things you did, which was really great, is you spent a lot of time on the eyes. And why, when I said, because I'm like, I want the cowboy robot to be forlorn. Thanks also for not looking at me like I have two heads when I said that to you. But I feel like this is right up our alley, right? We're like, oh, forlorn robot cowboy, like, cool, I'll watch that movie. But you said you spent a lot of time on the eyes. So why did you think that was the gateway?
Well, I got really lucky because I was able actually to find a good reference image for it. But the thing is that anytime you're talking about an artificial being, whether you're talking about like a CGI version of a person, like in video games, one of the things that you will always hear people say is, the eyes look dead though. The eyes are the trickiest thing to get on a representation of a person, unless you're literally doing like a still life of them, where you're doing an actual portrait. Then you can capture it pretty easily. And there are artists who can do eyes a lot better, just naturally. But the eyes are tricky because we had two versions we were looking at. My initial version, I had actually drawn the, irises, pupils, like the full reconstruction of the eye, including the center. Whatever the center of your eyes is called. I'm not an ophthalmologist. I'm amazed I could even pronounce that without stumbling over it. Yeah. But the original version I had sent had it was just like Superman 3 when she gets turned into the robot and she has the silver eyes. It was just
which we thought
eyes.
Was kind of cool. We thought that was kind of cool at first too, because we were kind of like, oh, it is giving me a Superman 3 vibe. But,
well, I was literally 50-50 on it but that's why I was like, okay, here's the two versions. It's your album. You have to want what this is. To me, I could have gone either way. I like it. I think both versions have something to them, because without the stuff in the middle of the eye, it is almost like there's nothing left inside. Like this is a basically burned out husk of an android that is at the end. Right. But with the eyes, because they're gazing off into the distance, you get that as well. Like there's a longing there that the other eyes didn't have. And I think that's what you and I agreed, that longing, that kind of yearning for the old days of when this was still fun and when it was energetic. Right. And, it's all gone. The horse still has it. The horse is going crazy, but the cowboy is past it. And so that was probably the only really key element of the design that we had to decide on. Everything else kind of locked in pretty easily, because sad cowboy was easy once I found the right reference image. I was just shocked there was a sad cowboy picture. Somebody thought of this and was like, what does a depressed cowboy look like? Let me get an image of that. I'm like, shit, that's it. And it was easy. But the eyes were the tricky part, which they usually are when it comes to depicting a human being in any form other than, like I said, a literal portrait where you're recreating everything as you see it. To get that right, the eyes, the face in general, but the eyes in particular, are tough to get expressions right. And so that was the only part where I was like, I don't know which way we're going on this. And that was where you were like, yeah, I like it with the eyes, the filled out eyes. And that was, okay, that's fine. It was a 50-50 for me. So that was the trickiest bit, really. And it wasn't that tricky. It was just, which avenue do you want to take? It's like the sliding doors idea. Which way do you go?
And I really love the colors that you use too, because you went with such a bright color palette that he looked forlorn or crestfallen, but the cover still feels kind of bright and sort of exciting. And of course the horse is like fire Simra, like, fire horse. And that's really exciting too. So, yeah, no, I think it really came together. I think we captured like the forlorn quality, but then with the colors, it sort of kept it keeps it seems more upbeat. I think when you look at it, you don't realize it's a sad robot at first.
No, yeah, there is a kind of, you have to sort of lock into it. You have to key into it. And the thing with the color, honestly, that's sort of a byproduct of a problem I have with doing digital art, which is representing shades of silver, unless you're going to go real. I'm not a good digital painter. I'm not a good painter in general, but especially digital, I've never gotten the feeling for it. So I work in really harsh, kind of layered, but specifically, I don't know how, but blanketed colors. There's not a lot of gradation in most of my work. If you look at my stuff, it's just kind of like color, but there's not a lot of shading and that type of thing. And so silver is really boring if you're not going to have gradation to it on digital. And that's why initially I think that was a placeholder color. There is actually a time lapse of it on my YouTube channel that people could see how it constructed. And I think that was one of the first colors I picked, and I was just liked it because it was kind of a silvery teal, and I like teal. So it was easy from there. But you liked it. I remember you liked the color right away. That was even easier. Absolutely. I'm like, I haven't changed anything.
Yeah, because you picked that teal and then the reds that all sort of matched. And then I think later for the typeface, we used sort of like a beige or a yellow that was in his hat. It was kind of a beige brown that yellowed in his hat. So it all came together really well. And I feel like we could have like overdone it. Like we could have had it be a really kind of dark cover, like really like sad, depressed robot. But I feel like with the colors, it kind of captures more of the album, which is a little bit more upbeat. It's a little bit more hopeful, even though I think there's a little bit of that kind of, glory days past type of it. But it's a revival, so it's supposed to be upbeat.
Well, I think you were smart too, that you wanted that empty negative space. You didn't want it to be a completely cluttered cover. And what that does, now this is where I'm going to put on the I'm full of crap artist hat for a minute, is by having that negative space, what you do is you allow for the possibility of hope and for a reinvigoration of the spirit. Now that I really planned that when I made it. I'm sorry, everybody, I didn't. But Doug saw the empty space and said, we have to keep the empty space. So he saw it because it's his music. I can pretend that was always in my head. It never was. But sure, that was my plan all along, was to have a lot of negative space. But you wanted that. And I think it does, because if everything is just clustered and it's all misery, no matter what people will tell you, that does have an effect on them. So you don't want to go into an album. Some album art is made to have you know the feeling before you even hear the music, and that's fine. But when you want to allow space to breathe and have kind of different reactions, you kind of get that from the visuals as well, where there's like that kind of air to go into. Again, I keep coming back to air somehow in this thing.
Well, no, if it's like a Cannibal Corpse album or it's going to be a hardcore industrial album, like you want,
which is the best of all album art. Let's be honest. That is Cannibal Corpse has set a bar no one will ever match.
But in that, it's like when you look at that cover, you're like, okay, if the name didn't confirm what this album is going to be about, the imagery did, right? And so I think with this, I was like, well, the name's saying one thing, and then maybe the art is suggesting something else, or it's in an equal way kind of alluding to what you're going to hear, because this is not going to be a Cannibal Corpse album. I don't have it in me, but it's I think you did a fantastic job with the art, and I think it helps sort of catch the eye, so that hopefully people will take a listen.
Well, Doug, this has been great. Before I let you go, let people know where they can find more info about you and where they could buy the album and hear more of your music.
Well, it's DougBielmeyer.com. You can go in there. That's BIELMEIER.com. I'm on all the social medias. If you just look up my name, Doug Bielmeyer, I'm on there. And of course, the album is on Bandcamp. It's already available for pre-order. And will be available on November 7th for purchase. It'll be streaming everywhere on November 7th too, so you can listen to it on your favorite streaming app. Go check it out. You can also check out the YouTube page if you're interested, like you said, in hearing some of the live versions of these songs or me performing these songs. There's tons of video up there from the last 3 or 4 years of me performing these pieces, even a performance just from September where, like we said, there's kind of a weird dancer with the Dream Messenger, I think was his name, and some really great visuals done by my sister, Christy Bielmeyer.
Well, thanks again for Doug to come on and share his time and his music with us. And as a reminder, DougBielmeyer.com. You can pre-order the new album and listen to it on November 7th. Doug, thanks again.